Well, good morning, guys. It's Daze with Troy and the Lion. It's New Year's Eve. I have to work, and though I know you come here to watch my Hollywood history and whatever I encounter during the day, I have to work so early, I just couldn't do one for you today. So I actually wanted to do something a little bit different. I don't know, you guys probably have this in your life, but last night I heard a last name of somebody, and I hadn't heard that name in a long time. And it reminded me of something that, well, let me just break it down. I totally forgot that I was a paperboy. And I heard the name of the person who was my dispatcher. And, you know, like when you forget some section of your life and all of a sudden you start remembering it and you start backtracking so much through it, I actually realized that though I had forgotten this all happened, this was like a really formidable thing in my life. And there goes Jaw, here comes Jaw, down, we're doing a video, sit down. So first I wanted to thank Discover the Mitten for becoming a new Patreon. I really appreciate it. And Sally Latham, thank you for becoming a Patreon. Just so you guys know what my goal is with this is I hope to someday get enough subscribers that I can get people to donate just $1 a month. And between that, my Google AdSense, and t-shirts, I would love to just travel around the world as simply as possible and just vlog and just show you guys the things that I love about the world and the things that interest me. But so thank you for becoming Patreons. I know that they charge everybody at the beginning of the month, so it's so cool that you got it in right before. I think they either charge on the 1st or the 3rd, something like that. But anyway, let me get back to what this is all about. I forgot that I was a paperboy. And when I remembered that I was a paperboy, the very first thing that stuck out in my mind was my grandpa. And this is why. I've always kind of been independent-minded, and because of my grandpa, you know, I think I told you guys my dad died when I was 8. My grandpa's always been a real solid figure in my life. From the time I was like 3 or 4 years old when he retired to today, to literally today. And I got a paper route when I was in the 6th grade. I really wanted to have my own money, and I really wanted to be able to get things that I wanted. And my parents had just had a baby, so they just really couldn't, they couldn't invest that in me. And my sister also had a life. She was older than me, and she was going to be going to prom and stuff. So I just saw it as like I need to get a job of some sort, and a paperboy seemed like the most logical thing. What I didn't know about becoming a paperboy, and I think roughly I had about 40 papers, was that Sundays are really tough. Sunday's paper was about that thick, each one. And when you have 40 to 44 of them to do, it's really tough. And so when I took over the paper route, I would have to go to a lady's house in the neighborhood, a few blocks from my house, pick up the papers, and that's where all the paperboys would pick up the papers. And then you had to travel to wherever your route started. And my route started about 5 or 6 blocks away from her, and it ended about 3 blocks away from where I live. So it was kind of like a triangle. I would go to her house, go over here, start my route, go all the way down, then come home. My very first Sunday doing papers, I did not know what I was getting into, and the stacks of papers were so big that I had one of those satchel things that you put over your head. I couldn't even fit 1/3 of the papers in the front and back, and it happened to be raining that day. So I went and tried to do the paper route, and I had to come back twice to get more papers, and like I said, it rained. So basically I got a lot of complaints on my first day, because not only did some people's the spine of their paper got wet, but also I didn't get there on time. I actually you had to be done by 8 o'clock at the latest, if I remember right. You could start at 6 and you had to be done by 8. And I don't think I was getting done until 8:30. So I talked to my sister, and my sister had, actually the very next week I decided like nobody still would help me. My parents were taking care of a baby, so they didn't want to wake up early to help me. And my sister was, you know, she had a job, so she worked sometimes till midnight. She didn't want to get up early on her weekends. So my next plan was, we had a cardboard pet carrier, and I put that on a luggage cart, and I tried walking that down, putting my papers in that, but that was so heavy I almost couldn't get the cart to move. And then like if you try to go around a corner or something, the thing would tip over, and it was also, I couldn't get done on time. So then I tried to hire somebody to only do Sundays. For 44 papers and 7 days a week, to hire somebody just to do your Sunday, they wanted $20, and I only made $30 a week. So that was not really the best option. So I talked to my sister, and she said if I gave her $5, she would, just for gas, that she would get up and do it. Even though she didn't want to, she felt bad for me. So she did it for, I would say, probably like 2 months. And then I got in trouble for something, and I don't really recall what, but they just said, like, she can't help you tomorrow. So I was back to doing it on my own. And then she got a job. I think she changed jobs or something. She had to get up earlier and was actually working weekends, so she just couldn't help me. So I was over on Sundays. I used to go over to my grandparents' house. If my parents would let me, I could call my grandma anytime before 11 and say, hey, I want to come over, and just to let her know so she could make extra food. And then I'd call my aunt, and my aunt would swing by our town and pick me up on the way. And one of those days, I just told my grandpa, I'd only been doing the route for like maybe 2.5, 3 months, and I told him, I said, I got to quit the paper route. And he said, why? I said, I just can't do Sundays. It's too hard. And he said, well, what's hard about it? And I said, well, look at your Sunday paper. And so he looked at his Sunday paper, and he said, I'll tell you what, I'll come and help you next Sunday, and we'll do it together and see if we can't figure out a way for you to do this. So Saturday comes, and Saturday was actually the easiest day. Saturday's paper was like next to nothing in it. The only reason I think they even put out a Saturday paper was to announce the high school football scores from the night before. So he actually showed up as I was leaving my house on my bicycle to do Saturday's route, which, like I said, was super easy, but he misunderstood, and he thought I needed help Saturday and Sunday. So he went and did the route with me on Saturday. And I'm really glad he did, because then when he came to help me on Sunday and he saw how big the paper situation was, and what he would do is he would pick me up, and we would go over, pick up the papers, and I could kind of assemble them house to house, and he would just kind of like drive along the street, and if there were a couple of houses in a row, I would run out, hit those houses, hop back in the car, and we'd keep going. And we actually did this for a while, and it became a thing where, like, my grandpa just said, like, Sundays can't be done on your own. They just can't be. But I think he enjoyed helping me, so he actually started coming over every Saturday and every Sunday. And so this is one of those things that this is where the story kind of switches over to something else, but it will come back, is he had been helping me, and that was actually like a really great bonding time. And my grandpa, even at the time, like, I think he was in his late 60s, he had programmed in the radio station that I liked just one day he surprised me and said, I programmed your station in. And we would listen to it the whole time I was doing papers, and then he would like take me by Hardee's, and I could get a breakfast sandwich, and I would be home by like 7:30 or 7:45 or whatever. And like on the great days, and I didn't have to write a paper, I didn't have any homework or anything, I could just go over to his house with him straight from there. So that was awesome. This is where the story diverts. My mom had a friend named Mary, and Mary had a son that I had been friends with, I don't even know how old I was, but I had known him for about 3 years. And when we met Mary, she lived in kind of the back part of our neighborhood, and she lived in an apartment, and she found an opportunity to get a house, but she got a house in my school, it was known as kind of like, not a bad area, but the kids were bad. It was a bad element, just the people. The neighborhood itself was okay, but it was just known as kind of a bad element. And Mary every once in a while would call and invite me to go to the movies with them. And one time we went to the movies, she confronted me in the car and said, so why don't you like Anthony? And I said, I do like Anthony. She said, well, that's not what I hear. He says that you don't talk to him. Well, we didn't go to the same school. I was still in elementary school, and he was in junior high. So I never saw him. And what I found out was she said, well, some of the kids in the neighborhood said that you've told them that you don't like him. Some of the kids in the neighborhood actually lived right next to their house, Anthony and Mary's house. And then some of the other kids lived like either a block away or down the street on the same street or whatever. But once he moved over there, he started hanging out with those kids, and he ended up really having some problems right after there in life. And all the kids that I knew of that lived over there For the most part, once we got in junior high, they all ended up in junior detention centers. Every one of them. Either underage drinking in public, defying their parents, just like, not going to school. They were just really troublemaker kids. And Mary decided to have, they were basically doing a birthday party. And I was invited to the birthday party. And since I'd been confronted about it, about not liking him, I really felt obligated to go. So I found a substitute for my paper route, and this was a Saturday they were going to do it, and we were going to camp out in their backyard Saturday night, and then I would come home Sunday, so I had to find somebody to cover my Sunday morning route. And oddly enough, my grandpa even volunteered to do it for me, and I didn't feel right about that, so I think I did hire somebody to do it that time. But like I said, these kids were not friends of mine. I was friends with Anthony, and then these kids were friends with him, but in school they did not like me. My neighborhood was mainly people who played sports, baseball, football. We all got together, 8 or 9 of us would get together. It was kind of like the Sandlot. Depending on what the season was, we would get together and we would either play basketball every single day, we played baseball every single day in the summer, football, it just didn't matter what it was. They just didn't like me. And so when I went over to this party, they just really kind of made me the outcast of the party. For most of it, they just, everything that these guys talked about was an inside joke or something in the neighborhood that I didn't know anything about. And like I said, since I was accustomed to working 7 days a week as a paper boy, my weekends I was trained to kind of go to bed early and wake up early. So this was a Saturday night, and their basic plan for this party, I was in 6th grade, so I would have been between 10 and 11 years old. Their plan was they wanted to stay up all night. They had cigarettes. They wanted to smoke their cigarettes out in the woods, and they just wanted to walk the neighborhood. And I was just tired. I just fell asleep. But they were kind of bullying me as I would sleep. Every time I would fall asleep, they would either throw something at me or run up and yell into the tent to wake me up. And I'm a super light sleeper. And my mom and my aunt can attest to this. You will never see a darker side of me than if you wake me up when I'm not ready to wake up. It was like a running joke through our family. He's an angel when he's asleep, but he's the devil if you wake him up. And they were doing this all night. And I'd say on the 4th or 5th time, I really lost it. And I got up and I started screaming. And since 5 of these kids were really close friends and only one of them was my friend, it had been pretty much made, I pretty much got the impression that if I decided to fight anybody, which is what I think they were trying to get me to do, that they would just jump me. So without thinking at that age, I just picked up my stuff and I started walking home. And from their house to my house would have probably been a 2-hour walk. And not to mention we lived on the opposite side of town over an overpass. So at 2:30 in the morning, I started walking through their neighborhood, got to the highway, and I started walking along the highway. And I don't know what I was thinking. I don't even think, in my mind, I knew I wasn't going to get home. I knew that somebody was going to come and do something. And those kids went and woke up Mary. Mary, as I was walking, next thing you know, Highway Patrol was pulled over and they were behind me and they started asking me who I was, what I was doing out there, why I was walking at this time of night. And I just told them, I said I was at a party, I was at a sleepover and the kids were just basically bullying me, and I lost it and walked off. And right then Mary pulled up in her car and kind of made peace with the officer. We went back to her house and then she made me sleep inside. She made basically everybody go home. So in a way I kind of ruined it, but it wasn't really my fault. But my parents were real disciplinarians. Because my stepdad had been raised really strict, and he was really strict with me. And like I said, they had just had a baby, so this is the last thing that they wanted to deal with me going to some sleepover and then the cops getting involved. So the next day when I got taken home, I had to explain to my parents what happened. I don't know that I ever told them that I was getting just screwed with the whole time, but because I don't know that I would have. I don't know. I don't remember whether I told them that or not, but they were furious. And my parents did not, and I hope they won't be offended by this because I know they're watching it. They didn't let much slide. And when I got in trouble, it wasn't like you did something wrong. It was 2-hour lectures. And to the point where, I mean, for me, I always felt like the less you had to say to me, the better. And to be perfectly honest, I just remember sitting through a lot of those lectures and thinking like, I wasn't being told what I had done wrong. I was just being told that I couldn't do anything right. And I remember a story I'll tell you guys some other time. Another time, like a couple of years later, I got in trouble, and I was really embarrassed to talk to my grandpa after it happened. And I remember kind of avoiding him. And when I did see him again, he said, "Hey, I want to show you something on my computer downstairs." And I was like, oh, maybe he's not going to bring it up. And he starts showing me something on his computer, and just out of nowhere, he looks at me and he says, "The most important thing you can do in your life is be honest." And I knew what he was talking about, and we didn't talk anything else about it. It was over. And I learned a lot from that kind of discipline. But part of my parents' punishment to me for doing that and putting the family in jeopardy was that they took away my TV. And when I say took away, I mean they literally went in my room, they grabbed my TV, they grabbed my stereo, they grabbed my Discman that I used to do the papers, and they told me, "You go to school, you go do your paper route, you will now do your paper route alone, and then you come home, you go in your room, you close the door, and you'll stay there till we eat, and then you'll go back in there." And I think that went on for about 2 months. That was pretty much my life. And I remember that right away I had to, the first thing they made me do was they made me call my grandpa and say, "You can't help me with the paper route anymore." And I didn't really want to tell him why, but I called him and I just said, "You're not allowed to help me with the paper route anymore." And he said, "Really? What are you going to do?" And I said, "I don't know, but you're not allowed to help me anymore." And I think what I did, if I remember right, was I put in my notice for the newspaper at that point. Because we were actually going to be moving. As soon as school let out, my parents had bought their first house together. My mom and my stepdad, we had rented a house, and they had now bought a house in a different neighborhood. And we knew as soon as school was out, we were just going to start moving over anyway. So this was probably in April when this all happened, or March, something like that. So I was grounded for all that time with all my privilege and everything taken away, and I just decided, well, since I won't be able to do the Sundays by myself, it's almost impossible, I'll just quit. And their thing was they wanted a month notice to find a new carrier, so I gave them a month notice, and the very next Sunday, my plan was just I knew I was going to be done late, but I was like, I already have quit, so I guess it really doesn't matter. I went out there with a satchel on and rode my bike over to pick up the papers, and my grandpa was parked there. And he said, "You cannot do this alone. So until you're done with this route," because I told him I put in my notice and everything. He said, "Until you're done with this route, here's what we'll do. You ride your bike over here. I'll be here. You leave your bike here. We'll go do your paper route. I'll take you to get something to eat afterwards so that it takes a little bit longer time, and then I'll drop you back off to get your bike, and that'll be it. You can ride your bike home and nobody has to know." And basically we were both just taking the risk that my parents wouldn't wake up and go check on me and see if I was doing it by myself. And they never did. But it was a big testament to him, because sometimes it's in my opinion, not being a parent, but being somebody who can look back on it, sometimes the grandparents, it's okay to undermine the parents, I think. Sometimes, in the betterment of everything in the end, it's funny that, like I'm telling you, I forgot all of this. And then, as soon as I remembered that I paper out, the first thing that I remembered was my grandpa helping me do it. And during that time that I was grounded, it's actually how I became kind of who I was, because I always liked to be inside anyway. I didn't really like to go out and play because, as weird as it was, once you got to like a certain age, I felt like I had seen everything anywhere near me, and I love to learn. Like you guys pretty much can tell by the way the vlogs work that what keeps me motivated every day is knowing that I have the opportunity to see something today that I didn't get to see yesterday. And just being in a small town the way I was, watching TV was kind of that introduction. It was kind of like all the things that were out there. So it wasn't so much that I was lazy, even though maybe in my parents' opinion I was lazy. It was more that once you had done a bunch of stuff outside, like once you had been everywhere, you'd explored everywhere there was that you were allowed to ride your bike to, it just got boring. And so I was kind of content with being grounded. I really didn't have a problem with it because I still saw my friends at school. If they wanted to talk to me, they could swing by while I was doing my paper route or whatever. And during that time was kind of how me coming out here formed, because since I wasn't able to do anything, they had a book fair almost the very next day after I got in trouble. I think it was like Monday at my school. And I bought 2 Saved by the Bell books. I was obsessed with Saved by the Bell. In fact, that was a big portion of the reason I wanted to get a paper route. I wanted to buy my own clothes. I wanted to get my hair cut like Zach Morris. I wanted to just be able to start being my own person. And that was one of those things that I bought 2 books. One book turned out to be like a make-believe, like, hey, here's Zach's room, here's what Zach does on his weekends, and it was basically just photo shoots of like the characters from the show. But then the other book was called Behind the Scenes with Saved by the Bell, and it detailed their entire week as actors. And here, sit down. It detailed what their schedule was, all the way down to how long they were in school, when they did script reads, when they did their first run-throughs, when they ate. It detailed everything. And as I read that just became my goal. I just wanted to be one of those kids that was on that show. I just wanted to be an actor, and I just wanted to live in California, and I just wanted to get to be my own person for once. And since I wasn't able to really do anything with other people, it just got me stuck in this mindset of like, I don't need other people to do stuff with. I don't need somebody else's permission to go out and be my own person. I really developed that then, and I knew during that time that I was grounded, I had already made up my mind. I'm like, as soon as I turn 18, I'm going to live in Los Angeles, and I'm going to go and I'm going to try and make the things that I kind of feel like are almost impossible. I'm going to try and figure out a way to make them possible. And no offense to Troy, where I'm from, it's for a lot of people, and a lot of people love it there, and I love it there too when I'm visiting. But once I hit about 7 days, I've run out of things to do, and I can't even imagine what you guys would view my vlogs if I didn't live here and if I lived there and I was trying to find things every day to do there. So basically the reason I told you this whole story was because there's a lot of things I think you can get out of it. As a parent, I think you can get out of be mindful that your kids are people too, and that sometimes, even though it doesn't make sense to you, they have a reason why they do things. And my parents didn't really stifle my development or my creativity or anything. We just weren't in a financial position for me to go and do the things that I wanted to do that I felt like probably would have got me there. And a lot of people in the world don't get to do that. But I firmly believe that I wouldn't change anything about that whole story. Wouldn't change a thing about it, because all that told me was that I wasn't afraid to not be bullied. I was smart enough to know I couldn't win a fight against 5 people, but I wasn't going to let people treat me that way, and I was going to use that time that I was grounded to be productive, and I started scheming my plan that is kind of in effect now. I don't know. I just wanted to tell you guys that because it shows a lot about who my grandpa is. And my grandpa had a big influence on me, and his generosity towards the people in his life is something that I have adopted. And when I had jobs where I wasn't trying to make any kind of entertainment career, and I just had a regular job, I used to buy so many people dinner. I always loved to just be the nicest person. And it sucks being in the position that I'm in now, where I have to be more conservative with how I spend my money and what I spend it on. But I believe that anything in life happens, or everything in life happens at the right time. And the fact that that I didn't start vlogging until now, there's a reason. And one of the things that popped into my mind was before I started vlogging, I used to spend almost every single night at the Comedy Store. It was my hangout, and I loved it. But when I would take people there, if I would take dates there, sometimes they would get it, and sometimes they would leave looking at me like, you're not at all who I thought you were. And I had, right as I started doing this vlog, one of the main people that I went there to hang out with went off on me for something that I still feel was extremely silly, something that I didn't do. And I've known this person long enough to know that they will always have a war with somebody, and that it was just my turn. And they had done it to me before, and I decided then, I said, if they ever start talking to me again, this will never happen again. That's not a friend. I will never allow somebody to make me the villain again and treat me that way. And when it happened again, I said, you know what, I'm going to take a break from the Comedy Store. And I'm really glad I did, because I feel like now you guys have developed you've developed an expectation out of me, and it holds me to feel like I have an expectation to you, and that is I want to bring something positive. And though a lot of positive comes out of the Comedy Store, and I had a lot of fun there, there's a lot of things that I don't think a lot of people would view as positive. And I know that those would have been on my vlog, and I don't want people to think that because I find things funny in a satirical way that it has anything to do with like my political beliefs or my beliefs on groups of people, whether it be anything. I don't really know how to explain it to you. It's just there's a whole world there that goes on that some people view. The very first time I went, I was laughing my head off, and there was a couple sitting right next to me, and the woman could not complain more about how offended she was, how this was bad comedy. It was insulting to her, it was degrading to her, but she was the only one that felt that way. I'm trying to reach a bigger audience, and really all I want is to bring positivity to my life. Literally, that's it. I'm just trying to get whatever negative thoughts that I've had for all these years, whatever things that have held me back and made me feel like that I couldn't do something, I'm trying to just force those out, and making videos for you guys every day gives me an outlet to where I remind myself, hey, there are people that care about the stuff that you do. You don't have to feel like because you're not getting an audition that you're not doing anything. I just decided I wasn't getting enough out of what I wanted in my career, so I just decided to start doing this. And it all kind of culminated from the time I was a kid till now. So I just want you guys all to enter the new year knowing that a year doesn't define you, and people will always will be dying. We lost so many fantastic, talented people this year. I'm thankful beyond words that I didn't lose any family members. And that's all I want for the new year. I don't want to lose any family members. I got this guy. What more could you want? And I hope that you guys continue to keep supporting my vlog, and that I can keep inspiring you maybe to go do something. I can't tell you how much I love it when I see people that are on my Facebook page or people that follow me on YouTube, when I see them posting their own videos or photos of them at some kind of crazy place, and I know that like, hey, they're getting something out of this. They may have not done it before me, or maybe they'll start. I don't know. I'm inspired by you guys as much as I think that you're inspired by me, and I really want you to go into the new year knowing that I appreciate everybody that watches, and you guys let me know every day that I'm appreciated. So thank you very much, and from me, from that guy, Happy New Year, guys. I love you all. From Hollywood, California, one last time in 2016. Make it a good one. I'll probably be driving when the new year rings in, but you know what? A celebration is only what you make of it. I don't feel like I've went to concerts on New Year's. I've had dates on New Year's. Not one hasn't been more memorable than the other. When it all comes down to it, I think my favorite New Year's, when I think of it now, is every New Year my mom would make this special New Year spread, and we would watch the ball drop on TV, and I think those are my favorites. And since I can't be there, I'll just work today for somebody else making double the time per hour, and just continue to keep working towards making what you guys watch something special. So, Merry Christmas. Stop it. Happy New Year, guys. Goodbye. You know you just burped on camera.